Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. So a couple days ago, they announced the official Record Store Day list for 2022. And we are now, for the first time in a couple of years, going back to the official Record Store Day platform, which is a massive amount of records on one day, no multiple drops. Kind of. Because this year, although they have a scheduled Record Store Day, which is April 23rd, they have a fallback day. So they've essentially figured out that there's going to be a lot of issues going forward in the vinyl world. So they've essentially created a fallback day for stuff that doesn't make it on time for Record Store Day. That is actually June 18th. So that's going to be a drop. But for the most part, we've got an old school Record Store Day. A lot of releases, a one-day event happening. So it's about 320 releases altogether. I want to say maybe about 20 of them as of now are on the fallback day. So things are going to get added. There's going to be delays. They're not going to be able to get things produced in time. Things are going to get pushed back to the fallback day, I'm sure. But a majority of this stuff will probably end up coming out on April 23rd. I got to say, as a whole, this is probably the best Record Store Day list that I've ever seen. They have trimmed down the list significantly. In the old days, you'd have, maybe in the old days, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago, you'd have somewhere in the round about 500 titles, a lot of 7 inches, a lot of 12 inches, a lot of stuff that, you would look at the list and say, well, like, who is this made for? Who's going to buy this? And I'm guessing there's somebody out there somewhere that bought it. But for the most part, there was a lot of just dead weight type titles. But I would say over the last couple years, they've gotten really good at streamlining and slimming down this list and also branching out. If you go back in time 15 years or so ago when Record Store Day first started, it was a smaller amount of titles, but it was a lot of indie rock. I mean, that's kind of where Record Store Day got its grounding, was indie rock. But now we've got a list that has jazz, we've got classical music, there's everything on the list now, and that kind of has evolved to better suit the current group of people buying vinyl. 15 years ago, it was a lot more indie rock focused. There was DJs, there was people that were in indie rock, and then there was like audiophiles, and that was probably your main customer for vinyl back then, but that's not the case anymore. So I kind of wanted to go over this list, give you my initial thoughts, stuff that I'm looking forward to, and stuff that I feel is going to be really good and hot and in demand. I will say as a whole, the old school 1,000, 1,500 copies of an in-demand title are kind of gone. We've got a lot more quantity that's being released for some of these more desirable titles. Don't know if that necessarily translates into a record going to be easy to get and plentiful, because where, they might have 10,000 of an item coming out compared to 10 years ago, there's 10 times the amount of people really buying records these days. So yeah, I mean, it's probably not going to matter a whole lot. I mean, this is going to be probably right along the lines of Record Store Day past. People lining up, people camping out, queuing up, trying to get as many titles on the list as they possibly can. Even being that a lot of these titles are 5,000 to 25,000 copies, in the grand scheme of things worldwide. Even a title that has 24,500 is not a lot of quantity if it's a popular artist that's in demand. So, Record Store Day is broken up into a few things. They do essentially exclusive releases, which essentially that's them saying that these are designed to only come out on Record Store Day. Limited run and regional focus releases, really similar to the same thing, but smaller quantities, and apparently these are supposed to ship regionally, although that's never been the case. I've always been able to get every single title that's on the list. Now you might get allocated on some, but yeah, maybe that's the focus part, where you get really heavily allocated on something because of your area versus other reasons. And then Record Store Day first release, which is a title that's going to come out for Record Store Day in some sort of exclusive fashion. So that might be a gold colored record versus a standard black vinyl that's going to come out in the future. So if you go onto the Record Store Days website, it actually breaks it down with a legend key of, you know, what the titles are. A lot of titles for me this year that I'm looking forward to. Now, I'm not going to go over every single title because, you know, Record Store Days not, you know, they don't make every single title on the list appeal to everybody. So I'm going to kind of tell you the things that appeal to me and the things I think for the store that are going to be really popular. First thing is the Allison Chains, We Die Young. That was originally a promo-only EP, so it never really got a mainstream release. You know, that's going to be popular. Allison Chains has a pretty big following. I know it's a 12-inch EP, but it doesn't have a wide release, so it's going to be something that's pretty desirable. The originals go for, you know, a couple $100. Pepper Adams and Tommy Banks, trio, the Tommy Banks Trio, live at the Top. Now, this is cut by Kevin Gray. This is super limited, right? This is limited to 1,000. Now, this is off the Record Store Day website, and sometimes the Record Store Day website signifies only the U.S. release amount versus worldwide, but typically a bulk of all Record Store Day stuff on the Record Store Day website goes to the United States. So this is going to be a pretty limited release. Cut by Kevin Gray. People seek him out regardless of the title he does. So this is going to be popular. It's on reel to reel. But now this is a Record Store Day first release, so to get a release later on down the road. Rick Astley, Whenever You Need Somebody. I saw this, and like, this is the prime example of a title that a lot of people will make fun of and a lot of people will laugh. Like, why do we need this? Well, it's not in print. It's really desirable. I get people that are just getting into vinyl all the time. They want, I don't know if they're trying to rickroll their friends or whatever the case might be. They want the record. It's not easy to get. When you do find it, you know, I mean, clean copy, maybe 30 to 50 bucks. And yeah, it came out in 1987. So it's like the tail end of the original vinyl era. So it's not common to find. It's going to be popular. Albert Ayler, for you avant-garde fans. Kevin Gray's got a lot of cut titles on this list. He's been busy mastering for Record Store Day, apparently. So this is a 5 LP set on Elemental, the complete 1970 Foundation recordings. Let's see, 5 LPs, and I think I read on the blurb that most of this stuff is, if not all of it, is completely unreleased. So, big Albert Ayler fan. Got most of his catalog originals, and actually I got it from one guy. I bought a collection, and the guy had almost, he was friends with him, and he had almost everything in his catalog, all that really rare stuff. And I'm a completist for bands that I like, so this is going to go in there. So when it comes to some of these jazz releases, it's really weird. They come out a few different ways. They come out sounding great, they're super in demand, they shoot up in value, or sometimes the sound quality is not up to snuff. You don't really know it until you buy it, because a lot of this stuff is being, you know, released for the first time. You know, and yeah, then you get a little bummed out. But as a whole, I would say a lot of these unreleased jazz titles are really in demand, really popular. Chet Baker, Live in Paris, the Radio France recordings, 1983 to 1984. This is 3 LP on Elemental. Bill Biv DeVoe. This is a title that people ask for. It came out in 1990. The album's Poison. It was a huge hit. Very, very difficult to find on vinyl. People ask for it. It's going to be popular. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, In My Prime. So this originally came out, I think it was the Netherlands. It was a Netherlands-only title. It came out 2 separate albums, Volume 1, Volume 2. They don't go for a ton of money, but if you're in the United States, you know, to have 2 records shipped, it's going to cost you more than it is for this reissue. So Art Blakey, I mean, he's one of the best-selling jazz artists I have in the store. Sells extremely well. I know it's going to be popular. Blur, Bustin' and Dronin'. They're doing 6,000 of these on vinyl. So this is essentially a remix album with some live cuts on it, but it's never been out on vinyl. A lot of people are into Britpop. Going to be popular. You know, you've got your typical releases that you see. You know, David Bowie's got some Brilliant Adventure EP. There's some stuff like that that come out every single year. That's coming out. I'm not really going to mention that. It seems, yeah, there's certain things that come out every single year. Some of it I'm a fan of. Some of it, you know, a lot of times I end up getting the David Bowie stuff, but I don't know. The Brilliant Adventure stuff, that doesn't seem to interest me personally too much. Comes out as a CD and an EP. Dave Brubeck Trio. This is on Brubeck Editions. I think they've had one Timeout outtakes release before. This is Live from Vienna, 1967. Now, this is actually in the blurb as a really good sounding tape. So they actually specifically point to the sound quality in this, which is, it's pretty good, right? I mean, that's not really common, so you would anticipate it sounding good. A classical release. Very, very, very uncommon, but Marie Callas, Pure. All right, Mariah Carey #1s. It's, you know, titles like this I personally love because this is a title that appeals to a lot of people. It's a Mariah Carey's, you know, compilation greatest hits album. But albums like this, even if they don't sell out right away, as a store owner, I personally love them because this is going to be a title that's going to be in demand forever, right? It'll always sell. So for me, it's like, yeah, you order too many of these things, it'll still be easy to sell in the future. Childish Gambino, Kauai. Now, they're doing 18,000 of these, but this is a title that's never come out on vinyl officially. It's been booted quite a few times, so it's in demand. When the bootleggers get to a title, it's in demand. And I want to tell you some of the best value. So as far as stuff that goes up in value, appreciates in time, and the most in-demand titles I typically have come record store day are the jazz releases and the hip-hop soul releases. Those are always super in demand and difficult to get. They're always really heavily allocated. Now at 18,000, who knows? This might still be allocated, but I anticipate this being really hot. All right. Moving on. The Doors, LA Woman, my absolute favorite band and my favorite album by my favorite band. This came out as a CD box set 2 months ago maybe. This is the LA Woman sessions essentially. So you're going to have the new album, but, and you know, when it comes to that box set, I didn't even listen to the new album. That was like, didn't interest me. You know, I've got so many great sounding versions of that record. A modern digital repress didn't interest me at all. But the session stuff, unbelievable. I love the album, and it's the Doors. You know, they've done a couple of these now. The Morrison Hotel was fantastic, and this one was fantastic because every single, when you hear some bands and they're doing take after take after take, they're essentially just doing the same version of it, and they're trying to, you know, get a nice tight take together. That's not the case with the Doors. You can listen to 10 different takes of LA Woman, the song, and every one of them is like wildly different. These guys just, let's play it again. And the solos are different, and the lyrics could be different. Everything about the song is wildly different than the previous take. And, you know, what did they do? They probably just chopped them up, made the best take, and or just picked whatever version they liked the best. But it's great as a fan because some of these bonus discs some of these outtake discs where you're just getting every single take, it gets repetitive. It's not something you listen to. But I will say, when this came out, I probably played this 20 times complete, the 3 CDs in the store. So there was a large there was a large likelihood that you'd come into the store and you'd be hearing LA Woman for the entire day if you were there for the entire day, because it was just take after take after take. But it's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it. It's nothing more than I don't know if it's complete, but it's nothing more than what was on CD, the outtakes. I think it's a more curated, so they trimmed some of it out. But I think it's essentially just what was on the CD on vinyl. So yeah, there's 2 Bill Evans releases. Now, like I said earlier, this is something that could be kind of hit or miss. Most of the Bill Evans releases done by Resonance Records are highly desirable. Some of them are $300-400 now on the secondary market, to the point where they've actually gone back and repressed them. But there was that Live at Ronnie Scott last year that was kind of somewhat underwhelming sound-wise. A historical artifact, yes, but sound-wise that was somewhat underwhelming. But we've got 2 concerts from '79 called Inner Spirit and Morning Glory from 1973. Hopefully, these are of great sound quality, because then they're going to be really in demand and sought after. But I think both of these are unreleased, so you really just don't know until you buy it and you give it a try. It's one of those things you can't wait for reviews to this typically to come back, because if it sounds good, it's out of print, then you have to pay triple the price to get it. So it's like, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Here's a title that I get asked about in the store, so I know it's going to be desirable, and the originals have kind of gone up quite a bit. Future, DS2. This is something that was in print a couple years ago. Now the copies are going for over 125 bucks. It's going to be desirable. Again, the hip-hop titles do really well. Your typical record store day release for the Grateful Dead. It is live in 1972 at the Wembley Empire Pool. They're doing 8,000 of these. It's a 5 LP box set, the Grateful Dead stuff. I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, but it's always extremely popular. It always sells out. It's in demand. Handsome Boy Modeling School. This is an album that really needs to be in print. I think Vinyl Me Please did it some time ago, but even that reissue is probably close to 100 bucks now. But yeah, So How Is Your Girl is the name of the album. It's a double LP. I get asked about it in the store all the time. This is an album that really appeals to people just getting into vinyl for the first time, and they're looking, typically that early vinyl customer, when they're getting into it, essentially goes out and they're trying to find all their best, their favorite albums on vinyl. This is a lot of people's, one of their favorite albums, but it's not really from the vinyl era and very difficult to find on vinyl. So yeah, that's going to be popular. Jazz Sabbath Volume 2. So this got a release. Was very, very desirable. Then it got a mainstream release afterwards. But now this is coming up as an exclusive, so not a record store day first. So whether or not this ever comes for a second, comes out again, maybe some other version, some other design. But right now it's showing as a record store day exclusive. Jazz Sabbath's a band, kind of has a spoof thing. Go online and read about it. To where it's essentially, they wrote all these Black Sabbath songs in a jazzy form, and then Black Sabbath stumbled upon them and stole all their work and made their songs famous, right? There's a whole story on the first album. But they're really good jazz interpretations of Black Sabbath songs. So if you're a Black Sabbath fan and you're a jazz fan, this is the perfect record for you. I dug the first one. It was really good. I think actually maybe the album came out, and then maybe they did a mono version of it, which was, right? Probably just a fold down, but it was a mono version for Record Store Day, limited to 1,500, but that was really desirable and sold out. Madonna, Who's That Girl? Super Club Mix. Madonna releases are always really, really popular. Nicki Minaj, not my cup of tea, but heavily requested. Beam Me Up Scotty. They're only doing 3,000 of them. Never been out on vinyl before. Going to be really popular. This is something that I'm probably going to pick up just for the demos. Stevie Nicks, Belladonna, they're doing a deluxe version. Vinyl Me Please did a killer sounding, maybe Kevin Gray cut it, of the album. That's a killer sounding record. Really, really good. But this you're buying essentially for the outtakes, right? Nico, live at the Hacienda in 1983. Love the Velvet Underground. Love Nico. I love her solo stuff. This should be good. Now, this is kind of more towards, this is not Nico's prime. Let's put it this way. She was probably pretty far gone on drugs by the 80s. I don't know how this is going to be musically, but I'm going to buy it and find out. But she does her own solo stuff, and she's doing, Velvet Underground stuff. This is going to be, in my opinion, the most desirable, the hottest title of all of Record Store Day. And that is Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Sections. This is going to be a new series by Craft Recordings, probably very similar to the Blue Note Tone Poets, the Verve series Impulse stuff, which essentially covers Impulse, Decca. These are going to be high quality records. We don't really know what's coming yet. No announcement. High quality records. Press that QRP. In this case, this was cut by Bernie Grundman. Stout and tip-on jacket. This is going to be a deluxe version of the album. Now, this is going to be mono. It says online it's limited to 6,000. I think I saw somewhere, maybe the Craft direct email, that this is going to be somewhere in the 8,000 range. But I can tell you this is probably the greatest album on Contemporary. I'm trying to think if there's a better record on Contemporary. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think that's probably the best record ever to come out on Contemporary. The stereo mixes are really desirable, but I actually really dig the mono mix as well on this. In stereo, this record's got a lot of real hard panning, and I find a lot of the music is off to the left. And I actually really dig the mono version of this record. So this is going to be, you know, audiophile records. You know, they did the Kenny Dorham Quiet Kenny, crafted it maybe last year. Super in demand. Very, very hard to get come record store day. But the audiophile stuff is really, really difficult to get come record store day. And it's for a few reasons. One, the typical people, a lot of times that buy, you know, not the typical, but a lot of people that buy audiophile records are not your typical person that are going to stand in line for record store day. So they get drove up in price on eBay. You know, the flippers are standing outside in front of my store before I open, and they're looking on eBay, and they're looking at what stuff has sold for. So when you see a bunch of sold listings for a title like this, or the Quiet Kenny for like 150, 200, 150, 200, 200, 200 on a record that costs $20, you're just telling the flippers, pick this record up regardless of whether or not you even know what it is. This is going to be easy money. So that tends to be what happens with these audiophile titles. It's going to be really in demand. I'm looking forward to it, not only because, God, Art Pepper's, I really dig Art Pepper's Surf Rider, but this is his best record. It's essentially Art Pepper with the Miles Davis band. He was called up one day and said, hey, we booked you a session. He had nothing prepared. He goes in, boom, cuts one of the greatest jazz albums of all time. It's a really squirrely story, but that's just what it is. It's a great record. Really looking forward to it. Iggy Pop, pretty much an Iggy Pop release every single year, and I pick every one of them up. This is live in Berlin. They're doing 4,000 of these. This is blurbed as a soundboard recording, or I think they put it as a near perfect soundboard recording. So hopefully we've got, you know, yeah, some good sound on it, because they mentioned it. The Ramones, they're doing a Sire Albums box set, 81 to 1989. This is going to be really desirable because they're essentially going to be doing all of the Ramones albums that are impossible to find. So you've got Pleasant Dreams Through Brain Damage on this. They're doing 10,000 of them, but you know, the Ramones sell really, really well every record store day. They're typically a concert that comes out that's of medium quality, that they make 5 to 10,000 of them. They sell out every single year. I don't know if I've ever had a Ramones title carry into the next day. They're really desirable. So the box set, I think it's going to retail for like $150. I heard people talking about how it's going to be like $300. I think the MSRP when I looked online earlier, you know, at my sheet was $150. You know, for what, 7? I think it's 7 albums. That's going to sell well. Red Hot Chili Peppers, their newest album, Unlimited Love's got a record store day release version. This is kind of the Paul McCartney 3 version for the of, you know, if you're familiar with what happened there, we had 14 different variations. That's probably what it looks like is going to be happening with this Red Hot Chili Peppers album. This is the record store day version with slightly different artwork, maybe slightly different colored vinyl. Then you're going to have an indie store exclusive, probably a website exclusive, probably a standard black vinyl. Who knows? Then we'll probably get a Walmart, Target, Amazon, Spotify, European exclusive, and then maybe some picture discs to go with it. This seems to be the way things are going on these new, you know, on some of these newer artist albums. All right. Ringo Starr. Ringo the Fourth. Translucent orange vinyl. Then they're doing another one to translucent blue vinyl. A lot of people might overlook this thinking, like, I don't want this record. This is like a $5 record in every single bin. Let me tell you about Beatles collectors. They're absolutely fanatical. They want every single thing by the Fab Four. They're only doing 1,000 of these. They're doing 1,000 on orange and 1,000 on blue. I would imagine 950 of these things are never even going to be opened. They're going to find their way into Beatles fans' hands and they're going to be put on a shelf. It's just the way it is. Yeah, it's going to be a really hot release. I've already been called about it. You know, have you ordered this? Have you ordered this? Like, I never thought I'd be getting tons of phone calls on Ringo the Fourth, but the Beatle release, it's going to be popular. I want to tell you on a side note, that Art Pepper meets Rhythm section, The day that got announced, I probably had 25 to 50 phone calls. The phone wouldn't stop ringing over this. Everybody trying to, hey man, sell me one of these. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. There's always that new person that calls you up thinking that they're doing you a favor by giving you money ahead of time to sell these records. I got an email similar to that as well. You know, so common. All right. The Who. I feel like I'm missing something here. Where am I at here? Ah, yes. Taylor Swift. She's the Record Store Day ambassador. She's got a 7-inch coming out of The Lakes. Taylor Swift sells a ton of records, and this is going to be no different. This 7-inch is going to blow through here. Going to be very, very popular. Here's one of my favorite releases. Now you're going to laugh when you probably hear this, but Pete Townsend, Face to Face. It is essentially a live concert from, when was it? Maybe 1986, promoting White City. Pete Townsend's my favorite guitarist of all time, and maybe my second favorite guitarist of all time is on the album as well, and that's David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. So this was a killer concert. There's video of this concert on YouTube. Go watch this concert. Go watch the title track, Face to Face. This is unbelievable. This was a excellent, excellent, excellent concert. You know, I got the DVD of it. I'm super looking forward to it on vinyl. It's a great album. Musically, I dig the 80s Pete Townsend stuff too. I think it was great. It's like Lindsey Buckingham of the era. It sounds very 80s, but I like it for that reason. I like the very 80s sound. The Lindsey Buckingham stuff from the era sounds very 80s, although his new albums sound very 80s too. But I think they're fantastic records. But love Pete Townsend. This is a killer concert. It's going to be a double disc. Maybe was on a yellow vinyl. They're doing 3,500 of them. One of those titles that's probably not going to be super hard to find. I don't think this is going to be any big deal, but I really dig it. So I figured I'd mention it because, like I told you, this is the stuff I'm looking forward to. Jane C. Reilly, Harper Valley PTA. I looked at this record when I first saw it on the list, and I kind of laughed because it's like, what are they making this for? But then I thought about it. For as many times as you'll see the 45 of this, it was a huge smash hit. It sold a gazillion copies. The album is next to impossible to find. I don't know if I've ever even had a copy of that on vinyl come through the store. It's rare. So I thought to myself, you know what? For as rare as it is, probably should be repressed. But honorable mention, I'm not thinking it's going to be super in demand or popular, but it's something that probably needed a vinyl repress. Max Roach, We Insist. I'm not really sure what's going on with this. I figured I'd mention it. Pure Pleasure currently has it in print. It just looks like they're doing Max Roach, We Insist. Nothing really special about it. Not sure why you would get this over the Pure Pleasure version, but yeah, figured I'd mention it. The Rolling Stones, Hot Rocks, Big Hits and Phased Cookies. They did the other Greatest Hits comp last year. They're doing this one this year to kind of complete the package. This isn't anything like super rare, and it's not going to go for tons of money. The Rolling Stones releases always sell really well. It's one of the biggest bands of all time. So yeah. All right, so now this is another Who title. It's Hard, 40th anniversary. This too, that's what I'm buying this for. Just like the last Who title that came out. You know, it's the bonus disc, number 2, which apparently has a bunch of unreleased tracks. I don't know if it's unreleased on vinyl or unreleased on CD. I didn't look into it too much. But I don't know, for some reason I like the bonus disc stuff. You know, it's very plentiful. Bonus disc for the last 20 years, very plentiful on CDs. But to me, a lot of this stuff is like, I'm discovering it for the first time because I don't buy CDs. I don't really have CDs. So a lot of this stuff to me, it's like, ooh, you know, I like to have that. You know, I guess if I was a CD fan, I would have had this stuff decades ago. But I'm not, so I don't. All right, this is a few titles that caught my eye from the June 18th fallback drop. Miles Davis, What It Is, Montreal, 1983. Love Miles' 80s stuff. It's often typically Pam, but that's when he started doing more hip-hop / pop covers. I'm a big fan of that era Miles Davis. I won't say hip-hop covers. He did some pop covers, but he kind of had more of an influence, hip-hop influence vibe going out throughout the 80s. Really dig that era. I'm looking forward to hearing what this concert sounds like. Here's going to be one of the two of the biggest titles on this list actually are on this June 18th. And that is Pearl Jam's Live on Two Legs. They're doing a ton of them. They're doing 20,600, but I'll tell you what, the original's 300 plus bucks. Possible to find. Don't think I've had but one come in the store in 7 years. Not a common record. It's going to be very, very in demand, and 20,000 are going to sell like that. And the other, which is the album on this that, you know, when you look at this, there's always like a couple of albums. It's like, man, I can't believe it took them that long to do it. And this one is Prince's The Gold Experience. They're kind of replicating the original, which was nothing more than a cardboard, generic type cardboard sleeve with a sticker on it. The original was numbered. I'm not sure if this is going to be numbered, although they're doing 24,150 of these. They're going to sell. They're all going to sell. This is a $500 record if you can find an original, when you can find an original. Prince stuff sells extremely well, and that is an extremely difficult record to find. So yeah, that's it for kind of my brief summation of the Record Store Day 2022 list. Now, all of this stuff, when we open up on Record Store Day, the whole day is going to be for the locals. You come in, you buy, typical Record Store Day, right? Gonna probably have some special events planned that day. With the new space, I've got a lot more area out front that I can do special events. I don't have to have any landlord permission, so I'm thinking we're going to do something cool. Haven't kind of decided exactly what that's going to be, but I'm thinking we're going to do something cool. But for you folks who are not in town, the following day, it's typically 8 o'clock Eastern time, the day after. Everything that is available still in the store will go make its way online. And I order a significant amount of Record Store Day stuff. I typically get every single thing on the list, at least a couple of copies of every single thing on the list. Not everything makes it to day 2, but a huge amount of stuff makes it to day 2, and it'll be available on the website at theingroove.com. All right, guys, check out the website. Until next time.